Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Blue Abroad YouTube channel. I'm your host, Aris Matakos, and today we're back with another episode of The Rest. I'm joined by Nathan, as always. Nathan, mate, no football, no Carlton to break our hearts this weekend. So it was a nice, peaceful weekend. But how are you feeling, mate?
Yeah, it was good. A bit relaxing. Nice to not have to worry about it for a week, but it sucks. You have to wait another 3 or 4 months for football, and you know what? Well, AFLW is back, but the AFL men's we're going to wait a couple more months for again, which is painful. But oh well, we moved to finals now.
Yes, we do, and even our AFLW side couldn't get the chocolates. Our VFL side did though, so I guess there's some consolation for us. But yes, this obviously no footy on the weekend, so there wasn't a whole lot to talk about. But there was the awards night, which we'll touch on every award, and the All Australian squad as well. Probably a slight misstep on our part not to mention this All Australian 40 that was announced before we recorded last week. That's probably my fault, not putting it on the run sheet, but we'll talk about that and we'll do a quick preview of the 4 finals games that will happen this weekend. But I think it's best to start where the first talking point arrived in chronological order, the awards night. And let's just go through all the awards. Firstly, I just want to say the overall presentation of it. Patrick Dangerfield, right? You're a great footballer, but try speak a little bit quicker next time. That's probably the only thing of the production that I had an issue with. Did you catch it, or did you just say the awards?
I was just looking at the awards. I knew it would be very on and off the awards night, so I thought I'd just wait till they come through. But look, good news for you. I'm pretty sure Dangerfield is basically got one foot in the door at Channel 7 once he retires. So
great, can't wait for that. Hopefully, if he just speaks a bit quicker. I mean, he was the awards not felt like it went on for 4 hours, and he's probably a reason for it. But I think let's just get the two kind of obvious ones out of the way nice and early. Rising star and best first year player was the man above me, Nick Dacos. Any surprising? I would doubt no surprises there, right? He was out of canter, really.
No one. I mean, the only other rival he would have had is JHF if he had a really stellar season. But I mean, he didn't play every game, and with everything that happened off field with him, yeah, I mean, you couldn't look past Nick Dacos. That form he continued from under 18 football just transferred right into the AFL scene, and yeah, it was a well-deserved award for him.
He polled a perfect 50 votes in the Rising Star. I think, is that the first time it's ever happened? I'm not quite sure. I know Sam Walsh was robbed that the year that he won it, only getting 49. But like Sam De Koning, John Newcomb, these guys, they were obviously within a shot in terms of they were up there because of the seasons they had. But it's just a shame that Nick Dacos has produced one of the better first years we've ever seen from an AFL footballer.
Yeah, I mean, you thought he was going to fall away after a little bit. Yeah. I mean, that's what most tend to do, and I think that's why Walsh, didn't get that 50. He sort of started really well, but he sort of struggled a bit in the middle. It catches up to you after a while, but no, he just consistent footy. And I guess the way that team was going as well, I think it really helped him as well. I don't think a Collingwood season that wasn't as good as that would have got him that perfect score. They really it's a good season for him and the club, which put the two together, and it just makes it a very good season.
Yeah, I think he was one of the contributing, obviously one of the contributing factors for their stellar season. Probably didn't play a crucial role. He was obviously, you don't expect a player like that to play a crucial role, but he did play his part. And even if Collingwood, let's just say, didn't finish in the top 8, I still think he would have won it, but I think it would have been a lot more competitive. I still do think Sam De Koning had a more impactful season. I think what he was able to do against some of the best forwards in the game. I remember he shut out Harry Mackay and didn't give him a look in for the whole match. So that's just one example of him having perhaps more of an impact on games than Nick Dacos. But I think as a whole package, can't really look past him. He was probably the best first year player, and a snub for the All Australian squad 40. I felt. But we'll touch on that a little bit later. But yeah, no real surprises with these two awards. Now, the next award we're going to touch on is the Most Courageous Player award. Now, this was won by Liam Baker. I would like to know the criteria and the rubric for awarding such award, because I don't think there was a more courageous person in football this year than Sam Docherty. I'm assuming this is about on-field courage, this award. It would have to be, right?
Yeah, well, you would think so. I don't know. It's a bit of a weird award. Like, I don't think it's one of those, like, why are we awarding people for being courageous? Like, isn't that part of the game? Like, yeah, that's your job. I don't know. It's just sort of non-negotiable for a footballer. So it's a bit of a weird award. Look, yeah, Doc is the one you look at and think, how doesn't he get it? But I don't know. It's one whoever looks back in 10 years and think, oh, who won the most courageous player in 2010? You know.
Yes, good point.
You just move on from it.
It was a. Oh, but they're awarding this. I didn't realize. It's a bit like the umpires getting all Australian blazers, which happened. I think it's happened for a while, and no one's just paid attention. It's a bit like that. That happened. No one really cares. But congrats to Liam Baker. I'm sure he's thrilled. Put it that way, and I'm sure his family's thrilled for him. But the next award we'll touch on is best captain. Scott Pendlebury was the man to get that award. I mean, what's the criteria for this one then? I mean, because you can't really quantify leadership, can you? I assume Pendlebury should win it regardless, just based on the fact Collingwood season come from nowhere, experienced player, etc. But another weird award to give out in terms of how do you quantify it?
Well, exactly, and it's sort of one of those things they probably think, well, who made the biggest improvement this year and who was leading that team? And it's just one of those. I'm sure he had a huge impact. And I mean, look, people listening probably think we're just having a go at him because he's Collingwood. But I just think I think even if this went to Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne captains, you'd just probably think, well, you never know. And even a bottom team who's had a bit of an improvement, like a Gold Coast, like a Tuke Miller, like that's someone who. Look, but that's the thing. You can't say he's the best captain because who knows? Maybe they all hate him, but they've just improved. And so it's like, just a weird award.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's got some insight, maybe to award this captain, it's like the best captain. It's like every club gets a survey, and there's like 10 questions of it about the captain, and whoever ranks best. Maybe that's it. Because you're right. I feel like it is a very external award. It's like, oh, which team has done the best? Probably Collingwood has had the best season overall in terms of everyone. Their captain, Scott Pendlebury, we'll give it to him. But once again, I'm sure he's happy, and I'm sure his family happy, and Collingwood supporters would be happy. But let's get on to the awards that maybe the Rising Star and Best First Year Player mean something. But the AFL Coaches Association and AFL Players Association awards. We'll start off with the AFL Coaches Association Best Young Player. I feel like it's a good place to start. And it was not awarded to Nick Dacos. It was awarded to a man we spoke about just before, Jai Newcomb. This was the first award handed out, I'm pretty sure. Or it was handed out at least before the Rising Star. So that kind of threw me a little bit. I thought, oh, well, if the coaches are saying Newcomb, what might the Rising Star panel see? But obviously, any award that had to do with a young player or a first year player, we'd all think, or we all would have thought would have gone to Dacos. But it's good to see another player getting some love, because Newcomb did have a fantastic season, and in a struggling Hawks outfit, he was one of the shining lights.
Well, I think coaches would recognise his background. I guess I'm pretty sure he came from the mid-season draft. It's a tougher journey to from where he was to get to where he is now. I think and to have the impact he had it should be recognised a lot more. And I think it's one of that the coaches sort of saw with a bit more perspective compared to Dacos, who we sort of knew what he was going to do. And, he came through 18 ranks, everyone knew his name already before he got drafted. So I think just looking at the two, I think what Newcomb did in a short amount of time, I think the coaches probably recognise a bit more and put some appreciation on his name. And it's a well-deserving award for Newcomb in the end.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, another player that in that conversation was Sam De Koning, of course. I feel like it might be a subconscious bias because of Tom, but I really like the way he goes about it. But yeah, I feel like I agree with you. The way the coaches see the game is probably a little bit different to how other players see the game, and probably have, or other people rather see the game, and they have an appreciation for players who don't get the appreciation elsewhere. But the other Coaches Association award that was handed out was the Coaches Association MVP, and this, I'm pretty sure this is a vote. It is a vote system, of course, and for the first time in a long time, I think it was a tie. It was the Gold Coast Suns' best player by a country mile. You think Took Miller and then Clayton Oliver. Both players had fantastic seasons. Both players are Brownlow fancies, if you were to call it that. I was shocked at a tie. I thought they might have like a tiebreaker or something. But no, it's good to see two gun players have some recognition, and happy to see Took Miller get some shine on his name, because I feel like if he was playing for a Melbourne club, he'd have a lot more. He'd be praised a lot more than what he already is.
Yeah, well, 100%. He sort of sums up very well. It's hard to give you another reason as to why they did deserve it, no, but they, especially Took, I think, like you said, it's harder to establish yourself in the Gold Coast, considering just the culture we've seen over the last couple of years. But I think in terms of that person who is really motivating that group to get better, setting a standard and example, yeah, he's stood up week after week for the last 2 or 3 years now, and I think people are really now giving him the recognition he deserves. And Clayton Oliver, he does it week in, week out. You don't usually see a stat line where Clayton Oliver is not in the top 3 or 5 players for the game. Consistent performer, and he's dominated on the big stage many times this season and past. So, yeah, 2 deserving winners in the end of that award.
No doubt. Do you think this could be a hint to what the Brownlow medal would have to offer? Both players you'd think would be in at least the top 5. You have the likes of Andy Brayshaw and Lockie Neal, even Patrick Cripps, who are floating in and amongst there. Do you think? I think we spoke about our Brownlow prediction last week. I can't quite remember who either of us said, but did you have? Do you think either of these players are in the umpires' fancy come the Brownlow medal night?
I said Clayton Oliver, and I think he should be up there. Took Miller's predicted to win it if you go to the AFL website, but I just think Gold Coast have lost too many games to help him win it. And I think you look back at Carlton seasons with Cripps in the past, and often the amount of losses has actually hurt Cripps in the end when he's probably had the best season. And I think that might be the same for Took Miller. I think he's probably had one of the best seasons, but I just think the actual team performances, they dictate what the umpires are who the umpires are going to give votes to in the end. You know, they're always going to lean towards the team who's won and look at those stats a bit more. But yeah, I think Clayton Oliver will take it out, but who knows?
It will be interesting come Brownlow medal night. I'm not quite sure if these awards kind of carry over to the Brownlow. I probably should have done the research if I'm going to bring it up, but yeah, I don't know how the Coaches Association awards, like the winners of those, carry over to the Brownlow. It would be interesting to see if there's a correlation there. But on to the final award, which was the AFL Players Association MVP. This one was not handed out to Clayton Oliver or Took Miller. It was handed out to the man above you, Andy Brayshaw. Now, I said last week he was my Brownlow Smokey, and I think the players have just validated my thoughts ever so slightly. He had a fantastic season and was the player that kind of has typified Freo's rise to, maybe not dominance, but rise to a very good level this season. So it was good to see a winner that's not your Oliver, Bont, Petrarca, these superstars. Good to see some up and coming kid get the award. It was good to see.
Yeah, it's like to see a young face as well, I think is just great. You just sets new standards for the young kids that they can reach that level that early. And yeah, I think Brayshaw really stood up this year, especially when Fife was out most of. He was out most of this season. He stood up when he wasn't there, and I think Freo played better without Fife due to the likes of Brayshaw just being really dominant through the midfield, just playing a good brand of team football that helped them to get over the line 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10 this season.
Yeah, he does kind of what's the word? He's a player that kind of is helped by a good midfield. Of course, you have Mundy who's still playing at an unbelievable level. Sarong, Fife in there, Will Brodie as well. So he does have some backup. He does have some support, but I think his two-way running in particular has been expressed or kind of exuded this season, and it's been really good to see. So yeah, hopefully the players they validated my thoughts about my Brownlow Battle pick. Hopefully the umpires see it the same way. But overall, did you see any shocks for the awards night? Everything went pretty, or as per everyone would think. You'd think.
Yeah, I think so. There's no one that obvious you'd think, geez, stiff to miss out. All the players there. Look, you might have had others you think could have won it, but I think good selections in the end. And look, the ones we said who weren't picked, yeah, I'm sure they'll pop up in the future. Their names you'll keep hearing of. You know, come the. I'm having a bit of last week with the speaking. Can you tell I'm a bit sick of football this week?
Yeah, I feel like the quicker the show ends, or the quicker the footy season's over, the more we can just relax.
A bit footballed out.
Yeah, a bit burnt out. Maybe it's just emotionally we've just been absolutely killed. I feel like most Carlton supporters. I don't know how Derry holds it in every week and Pom fronting up, but yeah, I'm exhausted. Put it that way as well. But let's move on to the final bit of the final piece of the awards night, which was the All Australian squad. Bit of a misstep on us, as I said at the top of the show, not mentioning the 40-man squad last week. But just quickly off the top of your head, question without notice: any absentees from the 40-man? None have come to mind. Maybe Nick Dacos, the exception, and there was another player that came to mind. No, just Nick Dacos. I think for the 40-man was the only shock exclusion. Anything else on your end?
Not really. All Australian squads I've never been a fan of, purely just because it's so subjective. It is so subjective, and I don't think I could not think of a year we've looked at a team and thought this is a perfect team. Like this is 100% how the team should have been. But no, I don't. There was no one out of the 44 I think was really stiff. I think Dacos really just got pushed out because he was young. I don't think the selectors really had the guts to put him on there because I think they would have copped a lot of criticism. He's so young, first year. But otherwise, I thought the 44 that was selected, I had no problems with anyone that was on that list.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Dacos had this season next year, I think it would have been quite comfortable that he would have made it. But let's just go through the squad kind of line by line. We'll just do the whole defence as one. Stewart, Taylor, Maynard, Sard, May, Sinclair. I think the notable omission is James Sicily from that. But before we get to those six players, would you agree that they all are deserving? They all obviously had fantastic seasons in their own right. Yeah, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like the selection. I think all players that were consistently impactful, and it's sort of one of those positions where you don't look at stats as much as you do more in terms of like you look at the impact more than you do their stat lines. And I think all these players, in respect to the teams they were playing for, consistently week in, week out, made a good impact and stood up each week. So I think Sicily, the only one I would probably switch him for would be Sam Taylor. I think both had pretty similar seasons. But, I think it may have been Taylor hasn't been in there before. Sicily has. Let's give him a blazer.
Yeah, I think maybe just sharing the love around a little bit. But, yeah, I think I would agree. James Sicily is the omission from that. But it's so competitive that I don't really think you can criticise in a sense. I think it's quite fair that those six players were awarded a blazer. Moving on to the midfield and followers, Miller, Oliver, Mills in the centre line, and then Gawn, Cripps, Neal. Took Miller and Callum Mills, those famous wingmen that have dominated the wings all up and down the year. They love it. Two-way runners, like the dominant wingmen. Obviously sarcasm, but firstly, before we start, do you agree to that notion that wingmen have to be in the wingman roles, or do you think it's a midfield? Just put the best midfielders in.
Well, it does need to be wingmen. It's it's so odd. It's basically if you did this in soccer terms, it's like putting two strikers on left mid and right mid. It just doesn't make any sense, especially the players that in that position had great years. They don't get any recognition. And these midfielders are great. There's nothing against those two names at all. But I just think it's a very weird way of doing it. And it just doesn't, there's really no point of putting the names on a field if you're not going to stick to the positions that they've been placed in.
It almost belittles the position in a sense because it is a craft, and we've seen teams who don't have genuine wingmen get punished on the outside. I think especially now the wingers are becoming so like more and more crucial to modern footy. So I think it belittles the position a little bit when you have the likes of Josh Dacos, for example, who was one of the better true wingmen in the league. For him not to be recognised is a little bit of a shame. But looking at it from a pure midfielder's perspective, let's just put logic aside and agree with the AFL that wingmen aren't positions. Do you agree with the 6 names? Because apart from maybe an Andy Brayshaw, who does feature on the bench, which we'll touch on later, I don't necessarily think they've missed anyone out.
No, that all names that you'd expect to see on there. I mean, looking at the 44, there's no one I thought, geez, I'd probably come in for this guy, vice versa. I'm pretty pleased with the names that are on there. There's not much more to add to it. It's just that in that sense, they've got the midfielders right. I don't think there's anyone else you could really add to say, yep, that's better than that 6/7 that's on there.
Yes, I agree. And Gawn as the number 1, I agree. I think he's had a pretty good year. Yeah.
He always moving has a good
year. Yeah. It's the what's the phrase I'm looking for? Just your standard brilliance, as Dwayne Russell would say. But so we move on to the forward line. Let's just do this all in one big swoop. Petrarca, Jeremy Cameron, Shea Bolton, Charlie Curnow, listed in the forward pocket, Tom Hawkins and Tyson Stengel. Now, obviously, well, before we touch on, there's some storylines that have come out of it. Charlie Curnow, the Coleman Medal winner in the forward pocket, I think it's a little bit of a slap in the face. I don't really care because it doesn't really matter if you're the full forward or forward pocket, in my opinion. But it would have been good to just see him where he belongs, I reckon.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Will you look back at it in 10 years and say, gee, if I was going to put in the forward pocket? No, it will just be 2x All Australian or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It is weird, but it is what it is.
I thought Cripper's comment after, which was floating around on Twitter, was quite funny. That was quite funny. But I know your thoughts on a certain forward pocket in this team. Why? Just you explain it. You take the floor with this one.
Oh, look, I was just a bit interested with Stengel, and now that I see, I forgot Rosie was in this team. There were 2 names I thought, I don't know, I just didn't think they had amazing seasons. And Stengel, I think his cause was helped by the team he had around him, because his stats don't suggest that he was an absolute stellar year. And Rosie, I don't know, he never really stood out to me. He plays well most of the time, but I think he stood out I think he only had that impact he had because of how poor the team was. Individual impact and talent in the games.
Yeah, obviously that Kane Corns is now validated on the Rosie side of things. Rosie in over Walsh, which is quite funny. But I think with the Stengel one, I think it's quite tricky where he's come from, like the journey that he's had, the season in context is quite impressive. But yeah, I think someone like a Charlie Cameron would be a little bit more deserving if you're talking about forward pockets perspective or like a small forward. And also Christian Petrarca playing on the half forward flank. I get it. He played forward, but it's the whole idea of the AFL being in love with midfielders isn't helped by this inclusion. But yeah, overall, I didn't really have a whole lot of worries about it. Although shout out to basically the morning or the afternoon of the All Australian, I was listening to SEN to Dwayne's World, right? Great program, and some guy was on the radio calling and said that if Tom Lynch should be the All Australian full forward and should be in over both Hawkins and Kerno. So the fact that he's not only in the forward line but not only in the squad just made me a little bit happy. Just to picture how upset he'll be. But that's just my Schadenfreude overtaking everything. But yeah, it's good to see. I think Cameron, no doubt. Kerno, no doubt, in my opinion. Bolton, no doubt. Stengel and Petrarca, give or take. Hawkins as well, I think, was pretty deserving of it. Would you agree? Yeah, overall.
Yeah, overall, I'd agree. I think, yeah.
Yes, okay. Yeah. Moving on to the interchange, it was Blitzarves, Heaney, Andy Brayshaw, and Connor Rozee. We've just spoken about Rozee there, but Blitzarves, Heaney, Brayshaw, you'd assume your backup ruck, because for some reason that has to be a thing, even though it doesn't, because that's not how football works, but apparently it does in the All-Australian team. And then Heaney, Brayshaw, yeah, once again, midfielders award, so midfielders get picked. I know Heaney's a forward, but yeah, we all know my thoughts on Brayshaw. And Heaney, impactful season. That's probably the best word to describe him, I think.
Yeah, he's just one that, like, you just don't ever see him staying at one level. Like, he keeps getting better and better. Probably, I mean, you take out Buddy Franklin, I'd put him as the best player on that team. I just think he's one of those, like, real bloods players in a sense. He's just that turns up each week and will give you absolutely everything. Yeah,
I agree. And they awarded an Australian umpire. Can't remember who it was. Do you know? I don't. And they didn't do like coach. Did they do a coach of the year, or is that after the season?
I think that's after the grand final.
Yeah, right.
That's one of the on the podium awards. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Makes sense. But yeah, overall, if you were to make one change, let's just do it like that. One change, who would it be? In someone, out someone.
I'd have Charlie Cameron in. Look, do you classify Rozee as a forward though? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
he's Petrarca. Like, you do get what I mean when I say that? Like,
yeah, I don't know.
You can put him on the bench.
That's the thing. It's not. I would put him on the bench. I'd put Charlie Cameron on the bench and chuck Rozee out.
All right, I'd put Walsh in, Rozee out, just to piss Kane Corns off. He's not watching. He probably doesn't care. Yeah, but I would. Yeah, I doubt it. He probably like there's like a search function where he just every time his name pops up in any forum he's there. But yeah, no. In all seriousness, I would have Walsh. Actually, I'd have Sam Doherty in. I don't know instead of who. I would have him in. He was in the 40 man, wasn't he? Was he? No, he wasn't.
No.
I'd have him in the 40 man, and I'd have him in over Maynard. Why not? Actually, no, Maynard had a good year. I don't know. Walsh in. Let's just go with Rozee out. Why not? But yeah, there's the review of the All Australian team and the whole awards night. But as it is finals time, let's go through the 4 games, the 2 qualifying, 2 elimination finals. Now let's start. Quick preview. Let's start on Thursday night. Yes, with Brisbane versus Richmond's 6th versus 7th. This is a massive game. I think this is probably the biggest game in terms of pressure. despite there being another elimination final, I think this is the biggest game because both teams have a lot riding on this.
Yeah. This is for Richmond and nothing to lose type of game. I just think all the pressure is on Brisbane. I think everything can go wrong for Brisbane on Thursday night, but I don't think anything can go wrong for Richmond because like they're out of their premiership window in a sense, like not they're in it, but like in terms of you go 3-4 years ago, they're out of that. They're not doing that anymore. They're in a different era where it's more about they're getting in and they'll be competitive. If they lose, no one will care. Like, as in a sense, no one will think, wow, they really choked or big opportunity. Whereas Brisbane, they are genuinely in their premiership window. They've finished pretty low considering where they wanted to finish. Yeah, all the pressure's on Brisbane for this one. And I just think they're mentally finished this year. I think the Melbourne game really just put a knife in their back. And I don't know. I just don't see them winning this game.
Well, I've just seen now that the tickets are sold out. So a packed house at the Gabba should help their case. But the reason I say this is probably the biggest pressure game is because Brisbane, like you said, maybe not last chance, but this is their premiership window. They haven't won a knockout game in this run. I think that the only final they've won was the qualifying final in 2020. So massive chance for them to right some wrongs. Of course, we all know that the qualifying final of that season was against Richmond. But looking at from a Richmond perspective, it is kind of like a last chance, last dance type thing. I don't see them challenging as well as they have done in the past couple of years next year. I think despite the Taranto speculation leading towards their side, if they get him in, that's a fantastic acquisition. But Dusty's not getting any younger. Cotchin's not getting any younger. Revolt's not getting any younger. So this is almost like their last dance to ride off into the sunset. It would be fitting if they finish it off with another Premiership Cup. It would be unbearable for every fan that's not a Richmond supporter. But it would be quite nice to see this great team like see off into the sunset. But I just think it's Brisbane's to lose. I think there's going to be so much pressure on them that they can't fail. I think they physically will not be able to lose this game. I think there's going to be too much on them. If they do, I don't know what's next. Do you have to ask questions of Fagan? Do you have to ask questions of this coach, of this playing list? Because it seems like everything's there, and the talent is second to none. I feel like they have to win this game, so that's probably why I'm going to tip Brisbane in this one.
Margin, just a quick one.
Oh, close, tight, under a goal, under 2 goals. I just think they have to win. I just think that there's no option. They can't lose this game. They can't lose it. I think that pressure is actually going to work out. For them. But I can also see Richmond going over Dusty in his comeback game, kicking 6, and then getting thumped by 10 goals. That's also another possibility.
Well, I'm going Richmond by 26, and the last time I tipped them to win, they got pretty close. I said 10 goals against Port Adelaide, and they won by 40, 45. So I reckon they'll do it quite. 26, Richmond.
There you go. And let's move on to Friday night, which is the first qualifying final, the D's versus Swans, I should say, at the MCG. Of course, no team is getting knocked out for this game, but the loser will verse the winner of the game of the Lions Tigers. Is that how it works?
Yep. So yeah.
Yes. So what the first bracket of the finals will be decided by Friday night. The D's obviously host the Swans at the G. The last time this fixture happened, the Swans rolled the D's in while the D's were experiencing that kind of plateau in the middle of the season. Do you see it going in a similar direction, or can the D's right their wrongs?
This is a really tough game to call. I think this is probably, if you agree, the game of the week, first round.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's a really weird one because look, Melbourne, they keep saying they're back. They're back to what they thought they were. I don't know if I totally agree, and only because their last 3 weeks didn't really stand out to me that anything had changed, and this is why. And the Collingwood game, I think they should have, if they were serious, they really should have knocked off Collingwood. They looked like they were, and then Collingwood just got back into it. The Carlton game, I feel like it was another one where, look, Carlton had a lot to play for, and I think that's why it was very competitive. And maybe that was Melbourne's best, but I think on any other day, Melbourne would have probably knocked us off by a bit more if it was earlier in the season. And the Brisbane game, I don't take seriously because where Brisbane were at, I just think that was a win. That was just a win. I didn't see that as like a statement win. I just thought that was a win they should have had. So I don't know. I'm not sure on the Demons, and I don't think I'll be sure about them until after Friday night. So it's hard, and Sydney just beat them. Well, not just, but they've proven they can beat them at the G. Sydney, I think, my whole key to this game is whoever starts well will win it. I just don't see a comeback happening. As in, I think whoever starts well, even if they fatigue, they'll have it. They'll be back again for the fourth quarter, where that opposition is trying to come back at them. I think that's what Sydney did against Collingwood. They really put it on them in the first 3 quarters, but they did fatigue. So they held strong in the fourth quarter. Hard to tip this one. Give me your thoughts, and I'll give you a prediction after that.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is probably in terms of quality the match of the round or of the first round of the finals. I think the Collingwood Geelong game is probably the match I'm most intrigued by, but we'll touch on that next.
Yeah.
Tight, very tight to call. I think if this was at the SCG, it would be a much simpler equation for me to solve. I think the Swans would roll them quite comfortably, but the D's just have this way of I think they know what it takes now. They've been there. They know what it takes, and yeah, it's going to be very tight. It's going to be very tight. I would love to see the Swans win because I really rate their list. I love what they're doing, but in the same vein, the D's just have that experience. I think they will have a chip on their shoulder from that last game. They'll have a chip on their shoulder from that middle part of the season where they weren't great and they want to prove people wrong prove people wrong and prove that they are capable of doing damage in finals. With that saying, though, I'm gonna go with Sydney. I just think they are. I don't know. Can it be a draw? No, I think Sydney. I'll go with my gut. My gut's telling me Sydney, and yeah, I'm going to go with Sydney. But like I said, like the last game, it'll be tight under a goal. This one will go right to the wire.
Yeah, I agree, but I'll back Melbourne. I just think because it's their first final in Melbourne since 2018, I think. So I think they'll live up to the occasion. If it was in Sydney, I'd back the Swans. But yeah, I'm going to say Demons by 8.
8, right. And the nerves aren't getting any or calming down any less or any more, I should say. The second last game, a Saturday twilight game. Firstly, you shake your head at the sound of the time.
Discussion of its own, but we'll move past it.
Briefly, I think it's a farce. To be honest, absolute farce.
It's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. If it would maybe it would make a bit more sense for the Perth game purely because it would be like a 2:30 game over there. But the two big Melbourne teams. You got local sport on, which is mainly grand finals and finals at the moment. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm sure this was already planned, just pre-finals, that, 6th, 7th play this time and they don't care who the teams are, but that's, yeah.
I think
it's a Saturday or Friday night game, without a doubt.
Yeah. It might be because of the Cats. I think that's so Geelong can get down the highway at a reasonable hour. That might be what it is. But yeah, fast, absolute fast. The fact that this is a twilight game is ridiculous. But I digress. Geelong, Collingwood, first versus fourth. The Pies, or the Cats rather, dominant in the end in the terms of minor premiership. Not a whole lot of challenges at the Pies. Scrape in at our peril, or not our peril, at our expense, in terms of our top 8 hopes. But they got him. Probably deserved to get in, if you were to call it that. They won, 13 out of 12 games in a row. So it's hard not to see them deserving of it. But the manner in which they got their wins, it is what it is. It's happened now. Percentage means nothing in finals, so you can't use that argument. But in saying all this, I think the Cats should win. They really should. But how many times has Collingwood been expected to lose and then pull out something out of the bag? So we all know finals football pressure makes diamonds, and you don't get any higher pressure stakes than finals football. Do the Cats finally break or get the monkey off the back and break this qualifying final curse? I think they've won one of their past 7 qualifying finals, I think, something along those lines. So who knows? I'm going to go early. I'm just going to tip the Cats because surely, right? Surely, just based off quality,
yeah.
And the Cats should win, and they should win quite comfortably. But it's Collingwood. So if we come here next week, Collingwood have won and they're into a preliminary final they're going to win by half a point somehow. I don't know. They're going to do it's going to be ridiculous. But yeah, Geelong by 5 goals. That's what it should happen.
Yeah, I agree. Look, if you quality, just what we've seen, that's what should happen. I think it literally comes down to if Geelong give Collingwood a sniff at 3/4 time, Collingwood will win.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I genuinely think that's it. And I said it about Carlton Collingwood. It will either be a Carlton will just win and win comfortably by a good bit, or Collingwood will just win. And that's what it sort of seemed like. Carlton looked like they're going to win by 30, 40 points, but you give them a sniff and they'll take it. So, yeah, I agree. Cats, I'm going to say, I think it'll be close just because of the final occasion. I don't see Geelong blowing them out like 2020. I think it will be relatively close. I reckon Geelong by 20 points.
20 points, yeah. So I agree with you in that sentiment of if they blow them, if they give them a sniff, they'll take it. If you look at the only games the Pies have lost in the past 4 years, it seems like the Sydney game, it was 22 points at 3/4 time, but Sydney got that early goal, extended it out to 29 points. And then from there, they were able to hold it. Of course, the SCJ factor does play a part in that. But, I mean, if you look at the game, well, not last week, the week before, Charlie Kerner kicks that goal early in the last. We're probably sitting here about to preview Carlton Freo. So,
yeah,
it is what it is. The Pies, I agree. If you give them a sniff, if you give them a yard, they'll take a mile. So, yeah, the Cats need to, if they're going to win, they need to put the foot down early and don't give them a sniff. But, yeah. Move on to the final game of the round, final game of the finals, first round of finals, the Dockers versus the Dogs. Just heard Nathan Fyfe will not be playing, which isn't as big of an out as what we all thought it would be if you were to say this 9 months ago. The Dockers have found a way without him for the majority of the season and arguably played better footy without him. But, yeah, it's over in the West. Surely the Dockers are going to be too strong, right?
Look, I can't. I think we're giving a bit of attention to the Dogs purely based off the 2016 factor that they went over to Perth and rolled West Coast in the first round. And I think they will feed off that quite a lot. Yeah, I agree with you in terms of Fyfe. They play better without him. I think it's a big out in terms of player for player in the midfield. You sort of lose not a tagger, but is quite influential, and it takes a bit of pressure off Fremantle, and it gives more for the Dogs to worry about in terms of just in the centre stoppages. But I think, look, Freo with a home crowd first final, they'll either let the pressure get to them quite a lot, and Dogs will cause a good upset, or Freo will just turn it on from the start, and Bulldogs won't catch them at all.
Yeah, so I agree. So you back
Freo, yeah. Freo by 28.
Yeah, I agree. I think the pressure is the only factor that could mitigate or limit the Dockers in this game. I think they should win, player for player wise, and system for system, they should win. But Dogs, they thrive off being the underdog. So, well, ironically enough, it could be 2016 all over again. But I think the Dockers should have enough, and I think it'll be tight. I'll go with 17 points. But I think the Dockers will just have them at arm's length for the whole game and it'll be composed victory, I think. So I'm not really sure what that sets up for next week, but I guess we'll preview that when it comes. There was no real moment of the round because nothing happened. So yeah, I mean, I didn't even put it in the run sheet. So yeah, I can't unless I think of one on the fly, which I don't, and I'm not thinking of one. So we're just going to ignore that for this round. But I think unless there's anything else you want to speak about, Nathan, are we all good?
We are all good.
All good. So thank you all very much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the Blue Abroad YouTube channel, like the video. Nathan, thank you very much for joining me once again. See you guys next time, and goodbye.